Let's have a look at how we can supercharge the use of our arrays by calculating the index value. Array indexes are values, which is the really important thing with arrays. That means that this value can be calculated. It doesn't have to just be a hard-coded number as we had before. So we could have a variable I, for example, to stand for index, and we could use that variable and modify that variable to access different elements of the array. Let's have a look at how we can do that. Alright, so let's start with our integer variable I. I could then say I is assigned the value 0, and we could use I at this location here. If I then add 1 to I, remember we can do that using plus plus. I could then use I here, and I could add 1 to I. I could use I here again. Just for the moment, I'm going to add 1 to I there. That'll make sense in a little bit. We could reset I back to 0 here and do exactly the same thing. Each time, by adding 1 to I would change its value from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 2, so now we'll have the value 2, and so I can just use the value I there, instead of the number 2, as we had before. It's exactly the same, but I'm just calculating that value. So it starts at 0, so we access name 0. It goes to 1, it now accesses the name at index 1. It goes to 2, we access the name at index 2. We can see, if I compile that and run it, that still works as before. And we get the names printing out. Alright, that's all good. But if only there was a way to repeat these instructions, I wouldn't even need to type them all out like this. At the moment, I mean, if we think about it, I've still got just as much code as if I had, or more code, than if I just had 3 different variable names and then I used the 3 different variable names down here. What we really want to do is make it so that we don't have to repeat that code manually ourselves. The great thing is, we can use a while loop. So while I is less than, and this is where we need to know the size of the array. In this case, it's 3. While I is less than 3, what we can do is we can access that name and store a new value in it. You've got to remember then to add 1 to I. So I will start at 0. While I is less than 3, we store a value in the name and we add 1 to the index. So now if we compile that and run it, we can still see that that works as before. But the great thing is it's less code. We've now just got a loop. And while it's only 3 at the moment, that loop would work even if it were 1,000 names. Okay. Now, with arrays, that loop occurs so frequently that there's actually a special loop specially created for working with arrays. You could use it in other cases, and you can do, but it's designed to work in harmony with the array. That's the for loop. The for loop is a special kind of while loop. It's basically a while loop with a few extra bits added to us, and it's great for controlling a variable which loops over the indexes of an array. Here's the syntax for it. You provide the for loop, you provide the initializing instruction, effectively the condition for the control, so the while part, the increment, what occurs at the end, and then the statement that you want performed. So let's have a go at doing that. So in here, what we could do is we could use a for loop here. So for, open brackets, the initialization. How do I want to initialize this? Well, that is this bit of code. For I equals 0. What do I want to do for my test? Well, this was the test. While I is less than 3. So for I equals 0, while I is less than 3. Now what do I want to do at the end of the loop? Well, that's this bit of code here. So I can take that bit of code and I can put it inside this bracket here. That's what I want to do at the end of the loop. Then I provide the body of the loop, the actual instructions that get executed. And as you can see, that's a nice little package in order to print out all of the names in the array. So effectively saying for each name, print out that name. The way I would read this, for I starts at 0, while I is less than 3, I'll run this code. And at the end of this code, I will add 1 to the value of I. So now if we come back here, we compile and run it, we can see that I can put in my different names. Awesome. Now I can change the size of the array. This is where it probably would be nice to have a constant in order to do this. So it was 3 at the moment. We could put size here then. And we could put size here and here. All right. Then I could quite easily change it. If I wanted to have 5 names, just change the size. We compile and rerun that. And now I have 5 names. And I can read in those 5 values and I can write those 5 values out. So the array has allowed me to work with multiple values inside a single variable. That makes it so much easier to process lots of data because now we can write loops to loop over our arrays very, very quickly. Go ahead and make these changes to your own programs.